Chapter 201. The One to Be Called. The cultural festival at Amani's school was not fully open to the public. It was limited only to family and friends. They had to request for an invitation. Of course, there was a limited number of tickets per person. This measure was simply because it had not been peaceful recently, and there were incidents of visitors being violent in school. A student's safety was priority, even though it was a festival, and thus the decision. I do not have anyone I can invite. It was after dinner, and Mahiru flatly muttered as she looked at the invitation list distributed by the school. She was dubbed the Angel, adored by the masses. But she hardly went out to make friends. Even in middle school, she had no one she could call an intimate friend. The other option besides friends was her parents. Her father aside, she definitely would never invite her mother. Truth be told, she came to the conclusion that there was no one she could invite, simply because she was unwilling to invite her parents. I do not have anyone on close terms that I can invite out, so this has nothing to do with me. The people I am better terms with are all at school, so you do not have to worry. Same here. Wait. Mom's going to yap a lot if I don't mention this. Will Shihoko-san and Shuto-san be attending too? I hid it from them last year and got yapped at for so long. Shihoko made quite a ridiculous fuss when she found out. Given her personality, she would definitely go all out on the skinship with Amane, even in public, and it would be embarrassing for him to have a clingy mother even in high school. Also, he did not want to let others see how lovey-dovey his parents were. It's the cultural festival soon. It seemed she remembered about it this year as she sent this message. She was definitely asking for tickets. I reminded them not to be so open about that before inviting them. Ha 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 ha. Mahiru too knew full well how Shihoko and Shuto would flirt openly, and gave a wry smile. I'll be inviting them. It's quite some distance from my hometown to here, and I don't really have anyone I'm on really good terms with. I see. Mahiru had no intention to continue further, for she understood part of the past history Amane had. Aman paid no attention to it, however, and got on fine with the friends he made in high school, so it turned out well. It seemed she was still concerned, however. He was more concerned about Mahiru's parents. Mahiru's father, Asahi, was fine, but neither side had any intention to meet. Mahiru had no intention to meet her mother, and Amane could tell through the one conversation they had. There was no way Mahiru would invite her mother to the cultural festival. Despite that, Aman did not know about Mahiru's life before high school, and assumed there was nothing he could say. Anyway, you say that you can't call anyone, but what about the housemaker? He then remembered that though her parents ignored her, there was a woman who imparted love and knowledge to Mahiru. That housemaker appeared to be the one who taught Mahiru's housemaking and culinary skills, and Mahiru's eyes looked blissful whenever she recounted about the housemaker. It would not be hyperbole to say that the housemaker raised her in her parents' stead. She widened her eyes once she heard so. You do remember about Koyuki-san. I probably mentioned a few words. It's about you after all. You're not calling her. I cannot do so. Amane felt he had a good idea, but Mahiru writhed, looking a little forlorn, despondent, and he realized he misspoke. Sorry. Something happened to the housemaker Koyuki, and he carelessly suggested to invite her. He frowned once he realized this, and Mahiru then realized what he was imagining, hastily waving her hands, telling him not to worry about that. This is not what I mean. Koyuki-san stopped being the housemaker when I was in middle school. She had waist issues. It was part of her work, but she had to tend to such a massive house alone, and I felt sorry for her for putting her through with such hardship. Amane felt it was no wonder then, since Koyuki's had an injured waist. Even when recovered, the old ailments could flare up again. It was akin to tying a bomb onto the waist. She could not work and could not get careless. She is staying with her daughter and son-in-law. I do not wish to call her over because I am worried about her. There are not many places for her to rest in school, and she does stay far away. I really cannot bring myself to have her make a trip here. I see. That's a pity. Yes. It was obvious from Mahiru's face that she really admired the housemaker. Amane too wanted to meet the person who shaped Mahiru's living ability and personality to thank her. It was unlikely to happen, however, due to health issues. I find it a pity, too, that I can't greet the person who took care of you. Maybe I should give her a holler in the future. Eh, greet? Greet? Yes. She is like your mother, right? Yes. Then I should pay her a visit. Amane had basically declared to Mahiru's father that he would take her in, and was recognized for that. He should also pay attention to the mother who took care of her. Mahiru herself was under the great care of the housekeeper, who went far beyond her duties to love Mahiru. It would be rude to the magnanimous person to sweep away the daughter without informing her. We'll think about it in the future then. It's rude to make a sudden visit, so let's get the chance to write a letter, Mahiru. Nothing. Doesn't feel like it from your face? It is nothing. Mahiru stuffed her favorite cushion onto Amane's face, blocking his sights. Goodness me, and he chuckled as he let her be. Chapter 202. A little jealousy and worry. Running a cafe during a cultural festival was really tedious, but there was more progress than Aman had expected. The crux was that someone lent them clothes. Once this issue was resolved, they chose to run a cafe. Following that was the interior decoration and the beverages and foods to be served. For the former, they simply needed to arrange the desks and chairs and make it presentable. The latter part was the troublesome one. The cultural festival would last 2 days, and they would have to estimate the amount of food to serve and also to pay attention to hygiene while serving. Despite that, it not such a problematic issue this time. Due to hygiene and the efforts required, they decided to purchase wholesale this time. To be precise, as a man's class was hosting a maid and butler-themed cafe, the core entertainment should be the appearance and atmosphere. Thus, they could only compromise on food. Given that many classes requested to use the cooking classroom, one would see that choosing a wholesaler was a wise choice. But I'll be a bit more serious about drinks, saying that was Itsuki. Still the committee member, giving a harmonious smile as he winked and told them. He said he had contacts that could provide him low prices for coffee beans. He happily slapped the bag onto the table, and it contained grounded beans. The best beans would be freshly roasted, but there was no time for this as high schoolers would be running the shop temporarily. Thus, the coffee beans were prepared, and so were the tea leaves. Everything that was to be provided was available. That's better than expected. Chitos muttered as she looked at the somewhat decorated classroom. There was a limit to how much they could decorate a classroom. Tablecloths, cushions, and little locker ornaments were placed on the desks, ensuring that they did not seem like desks, creating an atmosphere. It might not be an orthodox maid cafe, but it should suffice for a student activity. The most important aspect was still the dressed students. I think this much should be enough. Yeah. A change of curtains and decorations changes lots. Good work, you guys. The curtains really suit the mood. The borrowed curtains had yellow knots and looked grand. Amane pointed at the curtains. We'll be bad if we dirty them. And Chitos muttered so. There were a few seats set next to the windows, and if they got dirtied, it probably would be really costly to wash them. I guess this much should be enough. Let's just hope that the customers will come here. I think they'll be baited with Shina-san as the maid. Might have too many coming after all that we can't handle. My girlfriend isn't bait. Also, the other girls are dressed nicely too. Isn't it rude to the other girls if they're going to charge towards her? Amane only focused on Mahiru, but objectively speaking, the other girls in maid outfits looked decent, and the clothes matched them. His bias aside, Mahiru's cuteness was otherworldly, but it did not mean she was the only one suited for this. Ai-kun, I think you should take pointers from Amane. Oh, Aoi, you're cute too. Your praise is too insincere. If you don't praise me more, I'll punish you by bringing to that we last talked about for a tea course. Warg, that's expensive. Every table is assigned a butler. You can go learn from there. That's way too expensive a lesson. So Amane ignored the bickering two friends who were happily deciding on their next date plans and looked towards Mahiru, who sat next to him silently. For some reason, she was giving an inexplicable look. Mahiru. Amane-kun, do you think I am the cutest? What's with this out of a sudden? You worried that I just praised the other girls, isn't it obvious? What's there to ask? It suits you best, and you're the cutest. Why, yes. For a man, the one golden rule was that Mahiru was special, but it seemed Mahiru would feel concerned. He softly praised the somewhat jealous Mahiru, and that alone delighted her as she smiled happily. She would not cling on to him as they were at school, but she bashfully tugged at his sleeve. This little gesture was eye-catching enough, so a man was a little frustrated by how cute his girlfriend was. There'll be a lot more stares on that day. Warm stares were emitted from his classmates, and though conflicted, Amani was fine with them. The problem was the day itself. He foresaw that some would give rude looks and some would be unruly. I'll try my best not to leave her then. Amani was quietly grateful to Itsuki and the others for assigning him and Mahiru in the same slot. He looked back and forth between Mahiru, who was smiling bashfully, and the bickering lovebirds Itsuki and Chitose, before giving a wry smile. Chapter 203. The cultural festival starts. They were blessed with clear weather on the day of the festival. The weather started to cool, and they were sufficiently dressed to the point that they could keep warm, even with ties. They would not sweat much. We're in the first shift. I'm a little nervous. We'll change shift at noon, so let's work hard until then. I get the feeling it'll be crowded with you and Mahiru around. Sorry about that, but I really can't bring myself to do this. I'm about to give up. The first event was the opening ceremony for all students. So after they attended it at the gym, Amain was in the changing room with Katawaki, who was in the same shift, and they chatted away as they got changed. Katawaki, however, gave an enlightened smile. He was already used to having stares upon him, and probably gave up and accepted even though he was just changing. Handsome guys sure have it tough. Amane instinctively gave a look of pity, and Katawaki chuckled once he saw that. Be careful. Shina-san will get jealous too. Don't worry. I won't stand out much with you around. What are you saying now, but... Well, you might have more instances of getting jealous than her. Jealous? I'm in cold sweat. Mahiru was cute, and was really suited for a maid's outfit. One might worry if there would be any strange man harassing her, or even sexually. Lots of students would swarm towards Mahiru then. As the boyfriend, Amane was peeved to imagine so, and was worried if there would be any insolent stares. It seemed Katawaki understood what Amane was thinking. Do your best then, for he frowned slightly and made a wry smile, patting Amane on the back. They got changed, returned to the classroom, and their classmates were already waiting for them there, appearing to be all ready. The students that were not present might be at the cooking classroom. Itsuki's shift would begin at noon, and thus he was dressed in school uniform. Once he saw his classmates here, he stood at the podium, showing the usual hearty smile. It's the first day of the festival. Honestly, I've no idea how many people will be here. It's not like we don't have any past references, but we have some popular people here. Itsuki glanced aside at Katawaki and Mahiru, who gave wry smiles, probably having steeled themselves. Anyway, we'll sort it out in our way. It's not often that we get a cultural festival, and no point if we don't enjoy ourselves, even if there aren't any customers here. We don't have that much time next year, so our second year will be the time we'll enjoy ourselves most. We'll only be thinking about exams next year. That's a downer. Sorry, let's sweep the gloom aside. We're going to enjoy ourselves this year. It seemed the class was gloomy for a moment, but Itsuki's smile soon cheered them up. It was the right choice for him to step up and lead. Ah, right. Some business intel. Or rather, a reminder. I guess everyone understands that we don't allow photos to be taken in the shop. We'll remind them at the entrance that no photos can be taken. If anyone asks for it, just refuse and tell them that we don't provide such services, otherwise it'll get really troublesome. The specialized shops at the electronics street often provided such services, but not here, of course. It was after all a students' cultural festival, and the selling point was not the appearance of the attendants. Also, there was a notice pasted in the shop, forbidding photos. A similar notice was written in the corner of the menus. Also, no footage was allowed to be taken during the festival. Students from another school had uploaded their activity footage onto video sites and apps, resulting in cases of girls being stalked, which was why the school had new rules forbidding this. Times changed, resulting in these new restrictions. Amane was impressed yet bewildered thinking about it. In any case, there would be some who would not follow rules, and they had to pay attention. That's about all we have to pay attention to. We're starting soon. The moment he finished, a noise blared through the speakers. Following that was the principal declaring the start of the festival. Let's work hard over these 2 days then. We're aiming for top sales for our year. Itsuki raised his fist and boasted of something a little reckless, riling the class up. It seemed they were already riled up. Amon straightened his back again, and Mahiru, listening next to him, "Let us do your best," softly muttered so. Chapter 204, Busy Shift. And as expected, there were customers at Amane's classroom since the opening, mostly students. The angel's effect is really amazing. Muttering so was the male classmate Yamazaki, who was in the same shift. All the seats were filled minutes in, a rarity for a student activity. He might be dumbfounded or even thunderstruck by the passionate customers. It was really difficult for a restaurant to hold so many customers at once, so they limited the numbers. It was no wonder that he was intimidated by the overwhelming numbers. The male gazes would be on Mahiru whenever she went past them. Amane was reluctant, impressed, and peeved, his face on the verge of collapsing. He already expected so, and gave up, but he was really peeved about this matter, which he was already happy with. These words might be applicable to Aman, however, from Mahiru's perspective, vice versa. I guess that's expected. That aside, we got customers. Amane informed Yamazaki and led the new customer to the seat. Usually speaking, the customer was to be served by anyone available, but some would specify certain persons to do so, which was awkward. This shop did not provide such services, and if needed, they could go to those shops. The female student he just served appeared to be headed for Katawaki, but he so happened to be serving another customer, so unfortunately for her, Amane had to serve. "Please have a seat here." Amane pulled the chair and showed the smile Kido taught him. The girl, who seemed distraught that Katawaki was not serving her, was seemingly taken aback as she looked towards Amane. Too bad if she starts running elsewhere. So he taught as he informed her of the basket to put her belongings before brandishing the menu before her. "The recommended item for the day is set A. Is that fine with you, OU?" I shall have one then." On a side note, though it was a recommended item, there were only 3 sets of snacks and drinks, A, B, and C. They were sold as sets to prevent customers from merely ordering drinks. The entrance receptionist did remind them that they had to inform of an allergies, so there probably should not be any issues. The girl ordered with some hesitation, "Certainly. Please wait. We shall serve immediately." Aman bowed politely and went off to inform the counter staff. 1A orders are starting to pile up. Do your best. Some classmates were behind the counter, serving the desserts on the plates. Some were hurrying between the cooking classroom and the classroom, and a certain idle classmate lifted his head slowly. "Whoa, it's ridiculous out there. Don't die now. We can handle for now since we prepared lots beforehand, but what? I guess you guys will really have it tough." "Really? Well, Katawaki's a hot commodity. We'll be busier." "I'm not talking about that." He sighed, but did not mention why. Amain was confused, but it probably should not be too much of a problem. "This is ridiculous." Such was the look Amain gave, but he was in turn pitied. And also, Sheen has been looking here the entire time, looking a little unhappy. "What now?" "I think you are the cause. I need to serve. Not like I got a choice." "That's one thing, but I don't think that's the reason." "I don't get what you're trying to say." Amain felt that he was gently rebuked, but he could not understand, and frowned. The implication probably was that Mahiru was jealous, but it seemed that Mahiru was pouting because of something else. Amon decided to ask Mahiru later, and ended the conversation there as he served the prepared dishes to the table. Chapter 205, Aloof Maid. An hour and a half passed since the opening, and the customers did not seem to dwindle in numbers. It increased instead. More people entered as time went on, and the queuing crowds kindled the curiosity of many. Most of the initial customers were students, and later one could see visitors. They were not as passionate as the students, but there were instances of visitors being amazed by the many good-looking students. Some younger visitors wanted to seize the chance to woo, but the issues were calmly resolved by the service staff. "You're really cute, miss." Of course, some tried to speak to Mahiru, who showed a faint smile, thanked them, and went on her way. She did not intend to continue the conversation. "Have you decided on what to order?" And cut off any male attempts to woo her. This universal retort reminded the customer that he was merely a customer. "I have, but I want to talk about you. If you have, please place your order. If it's convenient later." "Apologies, but we do not provide such services. Please place your order if you have decided." This customer appeared to have intended to continue further, but Mahiru responded with a standard smile. The customer noticed a few staff members staring coldly at him and deflatedly placed his order. It happened a few times, and Amane could only show a wry smile. Guess I'm not the only one being overprotective. He could sense that none of his classmates was going to let Mahiru be hurt. Mahiru truly was adored by his classmates, but he never expected them to show such concern for her. "I know you're worried, but we're paying attention too. Don't be too tense." While Amane was surprised by this, Katawaki showed a wry smile as he approached Amane, having some available time. On a side note, he too was often approached by the ladies, but one could often see him dodging them artfully, probably out of habit. "We know you're restless about how popular your girlfriend is, and you can't always keep an eye on her, right? We'll chip in when we can." Katawaki. Amane realized then that Katawaki and the other classmates were so kind, and he felt a warmth spreading in his heart. "We don't want a friend to be hurt, or to be honest. We don't want to see someone wrecked again after being healed." Healed? The whole class is basically going, "Don't ruin the sweet and sour mood between you two. Sorry, I don't get what you mean. What's this guy saying?" It was no wonder then that Amane showed such a look. He cringed, having heard Katawaki say something so unlike him. The person who said such vague lines grinned away, and could not help but burst out laughing. "Anyway, just take it that Shina-san's really doted on, that everyone in class is being friendly to you two." "So you mean everyone's looking at us?" "No, just think about it. Everyone's definitely looking when you two are flirting so naturally." "Since when were we flirting?" "No, no, 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 no. What are you saying?" Katawaki gave Amane such a look, and Amane pursed his lips. He had no memory of flirting openly. Despite that, one could assume it was the atmosphere caused when he unwittingly touched Mahiru from time to time. "I got to be careful. Otherwise he might carelessly ruin something one day." "Well, as long as you two are happy." Katawaki giggled at the silent Amane, looking completely relieved. Embarrassed, Amane pursed his lips harder than before. "Aman-kun." Amane returned to the back counter and met Mahiru, who happily went towards him. Her smile was different from the business smile she showed. It was a sincere, heartfelt smile shown only to him. He felt his heart jolt and welcomed her with a smile only to her. "You're not tired?" "I am fine. Everyone is concerned about me, but I was shocked to see everyone intimidate the person with the camera through smiles." "Ah, we did say that cameras are forbidden, and reminded them before then. Can't help it when they ignore it. It does seem that everyone is extremely motivated." "Well, yeah." Aman did not mention that it was because everyone was gently watching over them, and brushed this matter aside. Mahiru gave a bell-like giggle, and it seemed she had not noticed it. One had to wonder if she really did not notice, or that she was used to it. She was worried about the cafe, for she had a glance at the shop. There are more customers than expected. I think people are just hopping onto the bandwagon. Just join the long queue. Perhaps it is. Of course there is. Mahiru then turned her eyes towards Ane. "I think people will come in with eyes for a certain person. I overheard chatter outside that this seems to be the case. Yeah, most of the students will come for you. Aman-kun, I have lots to say to you after this festival ends. Sure, what are we talking about? Many things. Mahiru seemed displeased and frowned as she tried to keep her emotions to herself. Amane felt that he might have stepped onto a landmine, so he hastily looked towards her eyes, only for her to avert. It seemed she was not trying to convey her anger, but rather she was bashful, for her face was red. Your attire is too sleazy. You should get used to it. You had enough of it during practice, right? I cannot do so. Your eyes towards me are different from when you look towards others. There'll be trouble if it's all the same. It was natural that his expression directed at his girlfriend would be different from one directed at the customer. No matter how cute the female customer was, he would serve her in the same manner. Truth be told, he did not think there was anyone cuter than Mahiru before him. To him, the bashful, pouting expression shown only to him was more adorable than anything else in the world. You do not understand, Amane-kun. I shall not hand you over even if others see how good you are. Mahiru suddenly changed topics, and Amane was confused as to what this was about. She did not continue on, however, and hammered at his chest, as though venting away. You said you're not going to flirt. It wasn't on purpose, so you say. Chapter 206, Aloof Butler. During the period Mahiru was being the waitress, what worried Amane most was not her captivating looks. Neither was it when people would harass her for her beauty and try to converse. The most worrying was when someone would try to impose one of man's 3 great desires upon her. It happened at noon, 10 minutes before their shift ended. A male customer had been eyeing the female workers the moment he entered. It was not uncommon as there were pretty girls serving them. However, Aman saw that the customer was sizing them up and had a feeling that he had to keep an eye out. He served the dish, took the tray, and was about to head for the counter when the customer reached out for Mahiru. Mahiru had just served the man some food and turned back. It happened right at that moment, and of course she could not see what went on behind him. The customer reached for the waist beneath the skirt. No, the buttocks. Amane took a step forward. Amane had been nearby, and the customer was slow, which was why Amane had a chance to reach out. Dear customer, please do not casually touch our staff. He slid the tray between Mahiru and the customer's hand, before the latter could touch, and reminded with a calm expression. Calm as he might appear, it was the opposite within. He was a little miffed that his cute girlfriend was being wooed, and he was further incensed about this act of sexual harassment. Mahiru turned around once she heard that. She determined what the customer intended to do as the tray blocked the hand, and her cheeks shuddered as she took a step back. Amane strafed to protect Mahiru, and did his best to show a tender smile. The shop quietened down unwittingly. Aman sensed the stares upon him, but he was so furious, he did not care. At the same time, he remained calm. The customer failed in his attempt and could possibly excuse himself. The surrounding customers might have noticed so, for they were staring at the hand. The customer, however, did not do anything, and Aman could only let it be if he said it was a coincidence. The customer did not commit the cardinal sin of touching Mahiru, but Aman noticed something the former could not absolve himself of. Dear customer, may I know where your entrance permit is? The sudden change of topic caused the man to widen his eyes. And also, how did you enter? You are not wearing the band indicating your entrance permit. All visitors entering this school had to wear a band indicating that they were allowed into the school. It was a one-time use, but was extremely sturdy. There were dangerous cases and thefts in recent years. Thus, the students needed to wear a band indicating their names on their necks during this cultural festival. Colors differing by year, ordinary visitors had to wear a band. The school imposed restricted access to certain areas, a measure to prevent visitors from entering. It caught water and broke. The man was speechless once this was pointed out, and Amane chuckled. How strange. The band is waterproof since there is a likelihood of sweat. The pamphlet did mention that if you lost your band, you may register at the main office. Which student from which class requested for your permit? You should be able to answer so, no? Well, enough nonsense. Amane stopped smiling and turned towards the staff that was observing. Sorry, may someone please call for the student council or a teacher? I don't think it's good to have an unwelcomed outsider loitering around. Already done. Our patrolling homeroom teacher is coming here. Good work. Amani heaved a sigh of relief as Kadawaki had quickly responded and acted swiftly. He shrugged, sorted his attitude, and turned to smile at the man who failed to molest. Naturally, Amane knew that his eyes were not smiling. Dear customer, the issue at hand is not the act, but the matter of an outsider entering without permit. Apologies, but the people at the main office shall question you. Aman calmly narrated what would happen to this man, and the homeroom teacher arrived and went to the man. Aman pulled Mahiru back by the arm and sighed. The pervert's failed attempt might be reported too, and he probably would be expelled. It was amazing that he did not know why a permit had to be requested. There would be records of which student invited whom during the request phase, and thus they would invite those whose identities were ascertained. They could trace someone if the matter was out of hand, and the student who invited the man might be slightly punished. Hardly anyone would do anything illogical. Wooing was still a gray area, and they would not be warned if they were not harassed. Aman was curious as to how the man got in, but the main office probably would interrogate further. Perhaps in the coming year, or even tomorrow, all personnels had to wear a band before entering. The man said something, but it had nothing to do with Aman, so the latter ignored it. Aman saw the man leave the classroom with the homeroom teacher, and acted as though nothing happened as he smiled at the customers looking at him. Dear customers, apologies for the disturbance. Please continue to enjoy your meals. He bowed gracefully, and the other staff members followed soon, clearly indicating that the ruckus ended at this point. Once he heard chatter like before, he quietly held Mahiru's hand next to him and pulled her to the back. Amane-kun. Our shift's ending soon, so go a rest. Wait inside. I'll get changed with you later. Aman felt it was fine as he had a look at the surrounding classmates, who waved their hands, basically shooing him away. He lowered his head slightly, brought Mahiru to the back, and had her sit on the chair. She remained a little dumbfounded, probably still shocked by the prior events, so Amane patted her head. Nevertheless, it was not good for two to leave their positions, even though it was near the end of their shift, so he returned to the shop once again. He went to the back once it was time for a changeover. Mahiru silently waited as she sat on the chair formally, holding a paper cup of coffee. A concerned student probably served this to soothe her. She seemed relieved once she noticed Amani's return, and her eyes softened. Once he saw that, Amani too eased his expression. Welcome back. I'm back. You feeling better? There is no need for everyone to worry. Normally speaking, we will be. Amane pulled her here given that she looked a little rattled. He felt he made the right decision. He patted her head once again after seeing her look a little displeased. She lowered her eyes bashfully and tried to brush it off by drinking coffee. Once he was sure the paper cup was empty, Amane took his parka, which he had placed at the back, and put it on Mahiru's lap. The school's air conditioning regulated the temperature, but many wore coats as it was getting a little chilly. He brought it for Mahiru to wear, however. Put it on. You'll stand out too much in those clothes. There would be stares on her if she wore a maid uniform, and photos were allowed outside. A man prepared this so as to not cause unnecessary mayhem. Considering the difference in height, the clothes could reach the thighs, and she would not stand out if she removed her apron and headpiece. She already stood out to begin with, and it was to be expected that her beautiful face would attract many gazes. She removed her apron, obediently put on the parka that was handed to her, and buttoned the front. One could sense that she was feeling better. She frantically rolled her overly long sleeves, and even pulled her nose towards it, blew her nose, and smiled. Amane hoped she would stop. That dazzling smile was bad for his heart. Itsuki, who was working the afternoon shift, seemed to have noticed it, for he sorted his tie and leered away. Amane frowned hard, and the leer grew. Aman felt that he lost something and was increasingly displeased. Mahiru blinked away and smiled. Left with no choice, Aman could only take their stares. However, Aman did not want to be basking under their stares, so he took his bag containing his uniform from the locker in the back. All he had to do was to remove his jacket and waistcoat, put them into the locker, and he would not stand out even if he walked down the corridor. Mahiru too knew that he was going to change, so she stood up, stored the apron and headdress into the locker, and took out her school uniform. "We're out. Leaving the rest to you guys." "Alrighty, flirt all you want." "Shut up. Don't flirt around in the shop." Aman frowned again once he heard this casual answer, but Mahiru held his hand, and it would be bad on him to give an ugly look. He gave an indescribably contorted look as he left the classroom along with Mahiru. They walked down the corridor and saw that it was buzzing out there. Even though visitors had to request for entry, there were a lot of them. The corridor was usually not this noisy, and it felt so jarring, but that was to be expected. "There's a lot of them. I heard there are more visitors compared to past years. It's no wonder suspicious people got past the security when there's so many people here." The cultural festival of this school was a lot fancier and grander in scale compared to others, which was why many external parties wanted to visit. Suspicious people. Mahiru lowered her eyes once she heard so. Aman realized that he misspoke, and he exerted a little more strength in his palm. "You all right?" I am fine. It shocked me, but luckily he failed." It seemed Mahiru had noticed Amani's worry, for she hastily shook her head. She would not give such a look, however, if she was really fine. "Sorry, I should have been more careful. But you were busy. It was simply because I was too careless. Careless or not, such guys will always be on the prowl. That's why we have to pay attention and stop these guys." She might be more wary, but there were some instances that would simply occur. After all, there was no stopping these molesters. She seemed to be blaming herself for being careless, but anyone could have done it if they wanted to. She did not do anything wrong. You didn't go anything wrong. The weird ones are those who think that those with pretty faces and nice bodies deserve it for being too attractive. Anyone should be respected, no matter their genders. "Yes. So don't say it like it's your fault," Amane muttered, and Mahiru lowered her eyes, looking a little perturbed, before she leaned onto his arm. "You never touched me much, Amane-kun. I do not wish to be touched by anyone else." Mahiru shivered as she whispered, and Amane held her hand again to encourage her. They did this while walking, so the surrounding stares were vexing, but everyone in school knew that the angel was dating, so it did not matter. Amane was uncomfortable to be looked at, but he started to get used to it. "Not much. I don't remember doing anything like that. You do occasionally cling on to me when I wake you up. Can you please don't remind me now? I'm not a pervert, you know." Amane inadvertently looked towards Mahiru when the shocking truth was revealed, and sensed that some life was creeping back onto her devastated face, for she gave an impish smile. "I do not think you are a pervert to touch your girlfriend's body." "So you say." "I do not mind. Don't pamper me. I'll do it. Are you not wanting to now?" "I'm a guy. Of course I'll want to, but it's too early." Of course, Aman had his own desire to touch, but he knew how fragile a male's sanity was, so he made sure not to touch too much. He also knew very well that Mahiru would not dislike it, and instead would like to be touched. She said that sharing the warmth was a comfortable feeling, and said that she would feel blissful to be touched. But if he really could do so, he might overdo it, so he had to endure. Mahiru might have noticed what Amane was thinking while the latter looked aside, for she giggled and firmly latched onto his arm. "Please understand that I do not mind." I know that. He knew she was agreeable to this as she liked him, but his heart was besieged as she said so once again. He quietly swore to himself to touch all he wanted when he could bear responsibility. He saw her smiling happily next to him and rubbed his palm upon hers. Chapter 207. Fetish. They got changed, kept the clothes in the classroom locker, and strolled around, wanting to enjoy the festival together. A while had passed since lunch, but the set-up food stalls remained bustling. Many students would change shifts at this point, and the customers might increase in numbers. Amani was worn out as he was not used to serving customers, and hungry. He went around wanting to get something to eat, and as expected, Mahiru really stood out. Wow, it's that maid. Such chatter could be heard from time to time. One could say that the class shop was doing well, and there were a lot of visitors. Amane was a little uncomfortable with this, and Mahiru seemed to have given up, or rather used to it, for she ignored her surroundings. Amane thus decided not to mind too much. What do you want to eat, Mahiru? I guess I will prefer something that I do not usually eat. I don't know what you don't usually eat, yakisoba maybe? Or takoyaki. While Mahiru did cook yakisoba before, she did not like food that were too heavily flavored, and if she were to, she would either make it salted flavored or cake. Takoyaki was even more unlikely as they did not have the machine. Mahiru hardly ate outside, and did not know much of food sold at such events. It was a rare chance for them. So Aman decided to go for the sauce-flavored yakisoba they hardly ate. He went to a class selling them, only to hear a familiar voice on his way there. It came from the stairs leading to the roof. Amane had assumed it would be locked as he went up the stairs, looked at the landing, and spotted a classmate he had been chatting with riantly. Fujimiya-kun? Shina-san? Kido called their names incredulously, and Amane blinked away. It was not shocking for her to be here, as there was no place to actually sit around in school. But a man was shocked by her posture. A boy was next to Kido, chomping down on yakisoba. She leaned on him, her hand lifting his chin as though she did not want him to drop the yakisoba. What are you doing here? It's obvious, isn't it? Lunch. Come on, Soken. This is the Fujimiya-kun I talked about. The boy's voice sounded vague as he had not finished chewing. He looked up at Amame and swallowed. Perhaps he was too impatient, for he frowned and slapped his own chest. Your fault for not chewing properly. It seemed Kido had expected so, and handed him a pet bottle of tea. She had uncapped it beforehand, and the boy immediately drank it down. He downed a third of it or so, and the choked item might have fallen down, for he looked relieved. Using a wet tissue, Kido wiped his mouth, which was full of the yakisoba sauce, and the tissue turned brown. You mind not treating me as a kid? The boy looked a little displeased after his mouth was wiped, but Kido continued to wipe with a smile. One might assume their relationship was of sufficient mutual trust, for he looked gaudy, but did not refuse. Kido's boyfriend? Oh, correct. He's my childhood friend and boyfriend. Come on, Soken, introduce yourself. You think I'm a kid who won't do anything unless prompted? Well, it's because you're shy. Come on. He's not a bad person. You wouldn't introduce him to me if he's a bad person. I'm Soji Kayano. He lowered his head, and Kido patted his head as though praising him, only for him to shake it off. Kido did not seem to mind at all, but this might be because of habit. In a certain sense, Amane was impressed with Kido's feisty spirit and looked towards Kayano. All he knew from Kido beforehand was that her boyfriend had amazing muscles. Amane had assumed he would be more physically imposing. In fact, though he looked taller than Amane, he did not look impressive beyond the uniform. Instead, it was Hiragi who looked muscular. Amane gazed discreetly while trying not to be rude, and Kido seemed to have noticed Amane's eyes, for she laughed jokingly. Soken's amazing when he strips. Amazing when he strips? Yep, Shina-san, my boyfriend's amazing. Oof. Kido leered for some strange reason. Amane felt it might be better for Mahiru not to hear, but the one interrupting was Kayano. All right, stop boasting. It's embarrassing, say. What did you say when I wasn't around? Boasting about muscles again? I said my boyfriend's muscles are amazing. Please stop it already. There's nothing to boast. There is something to boast. Yours are the best to me. What? Weren't you salivating watching the bodybuilding special episodes that had been airing on TV recently? Ah, that's just some occasional snack. You're my favorite main dish, Suchen. I can't do without you. You're special. Kido said it so earnestly, and Amane was so focused on the bodybuilding special that he omitted the flirty words before him. She really likes muscles, huh? I don't get her world. Truth be told, Mahiru had a smell fetish, and Amane had a feeling that she could get along really well with Kido. However, he might feel conflicted hearing about what they liked about their boyfriends, and if possible, he hoped they would not talk about it before the ones they were talking about. He was astounded in many ways, took a step back, and observed Kido. Kayano might have noticed what Amani was thinking, and clearly looked dumbfounded as he slapped hard at the back of Kido's head. Enough already. You're scaring him. It's because you said something weird, Sokchan. I apologize for our Ayaka here. You're blaming me. Kido gave Kayano a look that clearly showed that she disagreed, but it seemed they were just fooling around. Say you. She pouted her lips, and appeared to be reproaching Kayano while nonchalantly touching his muscles. Amane was left gobsmacked at this sight. Kayano did not look displeased, and left Kido be, for they seemed to have done so every day. He lowered his head towards Amane, who in turn inadvertently lowered his head. Mahiru, who had been silent the entire time, seemed to be considering something. For some reason, she suddenly clung onto Amane and gently caressed his tummy. Aman-kun is amazing too when he strips. No need to fight over that. And I don't have much. I'm not the type to gain much muscle. It is sufficient for me. It seemed Mahiru remembered about the bath, for she blushed as she touched Amane, who naturally showed a wry smile, wondering how it turned out this way. Chapter 208. Girlfriend's Worry. Anyway, have you two eaten? A man was coaxing Mahiru when Kido suddenly thought of something. They were in the same shift and were out at the same time. Kido quickly got changed and got out as she had her boyfriend waiting, however, and her classmates in the same shift probably would not have the time to eat this early. Nope. We're about to buy some yakisoba. Ah, yakisoba. This is good. Sokchan's class did this. Soken ate most of it, though. Kido giggled. You're the one who forced me to eat more, and Kayano retorted so. Anyway, that's how it is here, since you want yakisoba. She smiled and gave Mahiru a voucher listing 100 yen discount on it. It's a promo for internal use. And Sokchan says he can give this to those he's more familiar with, can I? Just give if you want to. It's not going to affect our sales anyway. Yippee! Kido grinned and handed over 2 vouchers. Aman felt grateful and sorry for this, and looked towards her face once again, finding her beaming away. Ah, don't mind. We're sick and tired of eating yakisoba now. We won't be using this again. Actually, I want some sausage instead. Proteins are better than carbs, so she chuckled. Aman felt that a sausage would have more fat, but he did not mention so. Thanks, he answered sincerely, and decided to use it. Thank you, Kido-san. I shall repay you one day. Ah, don't worry. I'm not doing this as a favor. Ah yes, Shina-san, Shina-san. How are Fujimiya-kun's muscles? Amane was wondering why she was making such a serious face, and was dumbfounded by whatever she said. Mahiru in turn blinked a few times, and started panicking for some reason. No. Amane-kun belongs to me. Whoa, how cute. Relax. I love Soken most, though. I'm just a little curious. You still have eyes for others? That's not true. Trust me, Sok-chan. Kido too started flailing her hands, but it seemed she knew Kayano was half joking, for she clearly puffed her cheeks. Soken no baka, she muttered with a sweet voice, and then showed a genial smile towards a somewhat wary Mahiru. I don't mean that. Since you have such fine ingredients. Well, I just want to help out in training him, otherwise it'll be a pity. Fujimiya-kun's so tall and thin, it'll be better if he gained more muscles. I will be in trouble if he is more dashing. Ah, he performed well today. His popularity might skyrocket. Kido seemed to have understood so, for she nodded away, and Mahiru pursed her lips. Amane wondered if he should be elated that Mahiru and Kido were getting along well, or that he should retort that Mahiru was being strangely jealous. He probably would not be as popular as she was worried about. If any girl was to approach him after he dressed himself well, they would have lots of chances to do so. Of course, they could not open his heart, however. There were lots of people who were more handsome than Amane, and he did not think he was as handsome as she assumed. He gave a wry smile once he saw how worried she was, and ruffled her hair. "Relax. I'm only interested in you, and if any girl likes me, she's just getting in the way of our happy relationship. I won't fall for her. I do find it unbearable, though. It's normal. I feel the same too. Anyway, you don't have to be that worried. It's fine. I do think you do not understand." Aman wanted Mahiru to relax, but she frowned unhappily for some reason. While he remained confused, "You really have it tough too, Shina-san," Kido teased. Chapter 209. Parents' Whereabouts. Once they received the discount tickets from Kido and Kayano, Aman and Mahiru left, hurriedly bought their yakisoba, and went to the backyard to eat. There was no space available at the designated rest area, and they could not stay for long in the waiting room. By elimination, the backyard was the only available location, so they arrived. There were a few students there, but as outsiders were not allowed in, there was space for them to eat. Aman laid out a towel for Mahiru to sit and sat on a bench under the shade, straightening his back as much as he could. "Seriously, there's too many people around and I can't calm down. Fufu, you do prefer quieter places after all, Amane-kun. And I hate it when people just keep ogling you. It feels like I lost twice. It is not that bad. It is for my sanity." Aman endured so as it was unavoidable, but he was quietly peeved. Mahiru was in her school uniform, and there were fewer surrounding stares compared to when she was in her maid outfit, but pretty girls still would stand out. Mahiru had given up and got used to it, so Amane really had nothing more to say, except to grumble a few words. Mahiru might have understood this, for she gave a perturbed, wry smile, patting Amane's head to coax him. Amane took it and sighed. "There'll be more people tomorrow. People have rave reviews about our shop, and we'll be in the afternoon shift. We shall have to hang on until then. Speaking of which, what about Shihoko-san and Shuto-san?" They did mention in their excitement that they wanted to see Amane and the others in such clothing, but they were nowhere to be seen, so it seemed Mahiru was confused. Amane scratched his cheek, shrugged, and said, "They said they took leave and will be here tomorrow. 2 days. Really? Why are you so happy? Shuto-san promised that he will teach me how to cook with that motherly taste. I did not expect the opportunity to arrive so soon. Guys have a motherly taste, well. I guess I'm more used to Dad's cooking." Shihoko and Shuto would take turns deciding on who to cook, and they split duties. Amane was very familiar with their styles, but Shihoko's dishes were more masculine in taste, servings and ingredients, so while it was home cooking, it did not feel like it. Shuto's culinary skills were better, delicate, and more comforting. One would say his cooking were more suited to be called home cooking. However, Mahiru's culinary skills were supreme to begin with, and there was no need for her to learn. It seemed she was very motivated, for she was concerned about learning the Fujimiya style of home cooking. "I'm happy with your cooking, you know. These are two separate matters. I wish to cook for you when you wish to eat." "I see. Well, I feel that your cooking is kind of like ours. You don't have to force yourself to learn." And you carelessly blurted out these words. One day, or rather at this point, Amane's stomach was taken captive by her cooking. He knew he could get good dishes from her every day, and her cooking was undoubtedly his family's. It was one belonging only to them, distinct from the Fujimiyas. It was not the season of bloom, but her face bloomed like the cherry blossoms. She took the used wet tissue and used it on Amane, wanting him to have the same color. Aman saw that the yakisoba on the lap was about to fall, so he moved them aside and patted her head. Her hair formed a gentle gradient as she had tied it the entire morning. The hair was loosened, and so her face ballooned. "Do you assume that you can fool me through head pats?" "No, but I think you'll be happy. This is no good either." She pretended to be aloof, but her face was wrecked by redness. Aman quietly chuckled as he gently patted her head, combing her hair. Chapter 210. Scary Things Are Scary. After lunch, Amane and Mahiru toured around the school again. There were often voices and stares as they went on, and it seemed to have tired Mahiru out. Part of the reason for the attention was that they held hands to avoid getting lost, but it seemed Mahiru did not want to let go. Her fingers were wrapped gently, yet firmly on his, indicating that she did not want to let go. Whenever a passing classmate in his first year gossiped from time to time, Amane would look at Mahiru, who would smile elegantly and lean her body over. She probably did not intend to distance herself and was clearly indicating her intent. Well, doesn't matter. The whole school knows that we're dating. It was likely the entire school knew that Mahiru was dating Amane. She had declared Amane to be the most important person to her during the sports festival, and after a weekend, they announced that they were officially dating. Mahiru's fame was far beyond their school year, so the seniors and juniors knew, and news spread fast. The boys were really distraught, and Amane was questioned by unfamiliar seniors without Mahiru knowing. But when Mahiru heard of such news from other classmates, she finished them off with a smile. They went through such incidents, and at this point, no boy would naively think that they had a chance. Even without declaring outright, it was obvious when they walked alongside each other. It seemed Mahiru had some plan, however, and did not leave his side. She continued to cling on to Amane, even though the student left. Something wrong? You are very stylish now, Amane-kun. How so? The hair and your disposition. The hair's because of the cafe, though. So I say. I don't really get you. If he could be popular just from a change of hairstyle, that would have happened when he started dating Mahiru, and there was no reason for her to cling on to him. Personally, he was glad to have her cling on to him, but he hoped she would ease off a little during their intimate contact. He, however, let her be, for she was willing to do so. It was to be expected that he found it slightly unbearable. Mahiru's being more enthusiastic than before. Amane avoided reality and the surrounding gazes as he slowly strolled through the school. He checked on the itinerary every class had from the distributed pamphlet, but Mahiru walked before him as though leading him to a haunted house. I remember Mahiru's bad with horror, though. There were times when Amane watched a horror flick, and Mahiru would hold his hand, looking all pale, yet acting tough. The words she said were incongruent with her expression, and it seemed she could not take such stuff. However, the haunted houses created by students were within budget, and clearly would not be as intricate as those created on TV. Perhaps she was fine with that. You really want to go to the haunted house? Eh? Mahiru immediately stopped and timidly lifted her head at Amane, clearly showing that she had not thought about it. It seemed she was just wandering around and was not thinking too much. The rigid expression she showed was akin to a creaky machine. Her eyes wavered around, and clearly she had no intention to visit a haunted house. I do not intend to. I thought you want to go. Guess there's no way since you're scared of this. I am not scared. Look into my eyes and tell me that. Why are you looking away? Mahiru tried to pull a fast one, probably because she did not really wish to reveal her weakness, but her attitude and expression explained all. Amane was not so naive to believe her when she clearly was looking flustered. There's nothing to be embarrassed about having a phobia of scary stuff, right? Instead, he found that cute. But she seemed unwilling. It seemed Mahiru realized that Amane was enjoying himself, for she looked up at him with a somewhat displeased look. Her eyes were slightly moist and lifeless, however, probably because the shock had yet to fade away. I am not scared. I shall visit the haunted house. Not scared, huh? Shall we watch a horror movie next time? I am more than glad to. Your voice is shaking this much. Amane intended that to be a joke, but Mahiru stubbornly agreed, which left him conflicted. You're putting up a front. I don't care if you can't sleep alone. I am not, and just in case, I shall have you bear responsibility. The living's scarier than the dead. You are not scary at all, Amane-kun. We slept together a few times after all. Mahiru leaned onto Amane's arm, looking up at him. He gently shushed her mouth with his finger and sighed. It was true that Mahiru once slept overnight at his place before they actually dated, and days ago, she stayed over at his place for the first time after they officially began dating. In a certain sense, they did spend nights together. However, these words would cause much misunderstanding, and the surrounding students started buzzing. They did not have that sort of relationship yet, and he felt conflicted to be misunderstood. "It sounds like you're inviting me out. Please do not misunderstand in a strange manner. You are inviting me out now. I don't mean anything else. I just want to see you shiver. You do mean something else after all." Mahiru started jabbing at his waist, and he grabbed her hand to stop her. Perhaps she was delighted to have her hand held, for her displeased face became tender. He smiled back and raised her hand. Of course they were headed to the haunted house. You said it before, didn't you? A woman does not need to be told twice." He remembered her saying so when she stayed over. Since she declared these words that were supposedly said by men, she surely would not regret this. I did say so, how mean." Mahiru fidgeted and looked towards Amane with moist eyes. Amane chuckled and led her by the hand towards the haunted house without hesitation. Amane decided to preserve Mahiru's honor and not inform Chitose and the others that Mahiru clung onto him the entire time they were in the haunted house. Chapter 211. Itsuki's Father. They left the haunted house, and Mahiru seemed a little worn out from fear, so he supported her by her back as they went to the rest room. He then noticed a familiar silhouette and could not help but blurt out, "Daiki-san?" He did not have a deep impression of the man, so he timidly went to the man's back and greeted him. The man turned his head around, his back still straightened. Amon heaved a sigh of relief upon seeing the face identical to the one in his memories, knowing that he did not identify the wrong person. He too straightened his back. Next to him, Mahiru looked up at Amani in confusion. "He's Itsuki's dad," so Amani explained quietly to her, without the man hearing. "It has been a while. I know it might be hard to recognize me because of my hairstyle change, but I'm Fujimiya." Itsuki's father, the man called Daiki, sized up Amani's face, and the somewhat unwelcoming face eased slightly. "Ah, Fujimiya-kun, you look different." "Ahaha. Well, I used to be gloomy. I don't mean that. I mean it's great that you're showing self-confidence on your face. You don't have to be so humble." Itsuki often complained about his father for being naggy, but Daiki seemed fond of Amane and took the latter's change positively. Amani too felt that Daiki was a little rigid when talking about his son. But aside from that, he was normal and kind, and Amani definitely did not think it was a chore to chat. Truth be told, Daiki was a nice person to talk to. The words and expression of praise left Amane a little awkward, and Daiki turned towards Mahiru. "And this pretty lady is?" "Ah, the girl I'm dating now." Amani's introduction of her was a little strange as he had yet to grasp the distance between him and Daiki. It was to be expected that there would be some difficulty in meeting a friend's parents. He could sense her freezing up due to embarrassment and awkwardness, but she showed an angelic smile as she bowed gently. Daiki was a stranger to Mahiru, so she acted as though he was a stranger. Given his personality, this was the appropriate reaction. "Nice to meet you. I am Mahiru Shina. I am dating Amane-kun now, as he has introduced." "How courteous of you. I am Itsuki's father, Daiki Akazawa." Daiki too bowed formally and glanced aside at Amane. "That's impressive of you." So Amane sensed from the look, but he played dumb and responded with a genial smile. "I see. Well, I didn't expect you to be dating a girl now, Fujimiya-kun. It shocked me since I haven't heard anything about it." "Nothing from Itsuki? Maybe he's in the rebellious phase, but he's ignoring me. Perhaps he thinks there is nothing to talk to me about. Maybe he doesn't deem it necessary to talk about how his friend has fallen in love. Itsuki's still on bad terms with his dad, huh?" So he thought, and nearly sighed, but he kept it to himself. "You are going out with Fujimiya-kun. I suppose my embarrassing son has been in your care. You really have it tough." "No, I have been under his care." "You say so, but he has been troubling you." No. He really has been considerate for my sake, and I am often assisted by him. I hope to continue this friendship with Akazawa-san. He's a busybody sometimes, though." Amane resisted the urge to retort, while Daiki marveled. "It is great that you found such a wonderful lady, Fujimiya-kun. Well, our Mahiru's a good girl. Enough with the jokes for now. Mahiru probably did not expect Amani to praise her in front of her friend's father, and her white cheeks were clearly red. She lowered her eyes bashfully and nonchalantly slapped Amain in the back without Daiki noticing. Amain quietly gave a wry smile. It was not too forceful, not painful or ticklish, but he curled his lips, for he had the urge to laugh. You two are on good terms, but you will blind those around you. It is something to rejoice over, however. Sorry, we'll take note. Anyway, are you visiting our class later? I intended so, but well, I do not think I should enter such an atmosphere. Daiki had no interest in service clothes, nor was he the type to profess interest in manga and games. It might be difficult for him to enter Amani's classroom. Do you want to visit with us? It's our class, but I want to visit as a customer. No, I shouldn't be getting in your way. You have some free time as lovers now, after all. And she's definitely in the classroom, no? Yes. I don't want her to feel awkward and lifeless after seeing me. I might say that she is rude if we do meet. Daiki gave an awkward smile and Amen too frowned, but he did not ask further. Amane did not know much about the issues between Chitose and Daiki, but he knew the latter was not being malicious, that the latter rejected Chitose due to his own considerations. He knew that, and yet hoped that their issues would be resolved. That was his thought as a friend. Apologies for disturbing. I shall visit somewhere else. But I don't want to ruin the mood. Have fun. Daiki then left before they could stop him, and Amane gently sighed. Does he still have issues with Chitose-san? Yeah, to be honest, Daiki-san isn't a bad person. Some people are just incompatible, and his demands are a little higher. He's not being malicious by demanding more of Chitose, and that's why they just can't get along. Daiki would have acknowledged Chitose if he could, while it was not encouraged for parents to dictate who their children date. But it was understandable that they would hope their children would choose better partners. Itsuki might not say so, but the Akazawas were well off, which was another reason for this stalemate. It will be great if he acknowledges them. They hate it tough. Yes, they do match and are on such good terms. I do feel sad to pull them apart. I really do not wish to do so. Yeah, I guess Daiki-san feels the same too, so he's trying not to interfere. There'll be a staleness until they relent and compromise. Amane sighed once again, and Mahiru lowered her eyebrows reluctantly, leaning on Amane's arm. If only we can do something for them, as she muttered so. Chapter 212, Back to the Cafe. Amane bought some gifts that could be left for a while, and did as Daiki said as he went to his classroom to rest. There was a queue far longer than any other class. He had an occasional look outside during his shift. It was hotter than it was in the morning. This might be due to the good reviews they had. It was his class, but he was still a customer. So he queued obediently alongside Mahiru. His classmate hurriedly scanned through the name list at the reception. Ah, Fujimiya and the Anshina-san. You're not here to help, right? Too bad we aren't. I want to be a customer for once. Also to check on Itsuki and Chitose. They're very lively now. Yeah, sorta. Why are you sounding so vague? I guess it's because Itsuki's look frivolous. That's his signature. Hey, Itsuki's cheerfulness and geniality was something everyone was used to, and his personality would not be erased completely unless something major happened. He would surely participate in such an event seriously and exhibit his personality. That frivolous attitude was here to stay. Some students liked how frivolous he was, and he was relatively popular as a butler. After all, it was a student event, and they did not have to act as proper butlers. Table for two? It will take a while. Can't be helped when there's so many people. We'll wait you fine with this, Mahiru. Are you tired? I am fine. I was just worn out because of that, mentally. You're the one who stubbornly entered. I was not stubborn. Amain saw the eyes avert him, and had the urge to bully her given how sheepish she was. However, she might pout if he overdid, and thus, he did not continue on. It's a promise. We're going to watch a horror movie instead. That was what he said. Mahiru faltered and glared at Amon, who in turn played dumb this time. Even the reception boy next to them glared at Amane and said, "Go somewhere else." Amane, however, could do nothing about it and evaded his eyes all the same. This little interlude passed, and it was finally their turn. The duo followed the staff to their table, and Amane frowned lazily once he saw the two familiar faces before him. Itsuki and Chitose were in charge as the receptionist had sounded the alarm, surely. They were beaming, looking a lot more serious than usual. Their cheeks quivered slightly as Amane looked a little displeased. Amon saw from their expressions that their little prank worked, and his face and lips shook. Of course he was cringing. "Welcome back, sir, madame." "Oi, Itsuki. That's not what it says on the manual." It was a maid and butler cafe, but they were to address all visitors as customers. Amane's face cringed once he heard them clearly addressing incorrectly. Mahiru lowered her eyes bashfully, for it seemed the term madame left her embarrassed. "No, no, no. There's a page customized for you two in this top-secret manual. It's written there. Don't reject reality and substitute it with your own." All right, all right. Have a seat here." Amon gave a reproaching look, indicating that Itsuki should not give me some fancy special treatment, but the latter ignored so. It was pointless to say more, so Amani could only sit down begrudgingly. Mahiru naturally sat on the sat Itsuki pulled out, and the elegance of her actions captivated Amane's look. "Had fun during your break?" Chitose giggled as she handled over the menu Amane had memorized, as per the manual. "Well, sort of. Got some places we haven't visited. We're planning to go there later." "That's good. I was hoping Mahirun would drop by to rest earlier." "Really?" "Of course, didn't she say she want to go out?" Aman glanced aside at Mahiru, a set A please, who blushed a little as she tried to change the topic by ordering so. She did not show much enthusiasm for the cultural festival at home, but it seemed she really looked forward to spending the time with Amane in her own way. Amane smiled at the adorable Mahiru, swore that he would question her later, and ordered the same. Mahiru glared back, probably knowing what Amane was thinking, but she did not seem displeased, so he heaved a sigh of relief. Fufu. Once she heard that, Chitose showed no attempt to hide her glee and went to place the order at the counter. Aman then remembered to hand over a bag of donuts, which was on his lap, to Itsuki. Each donut was mouth-sized, fried in a round shape. One could use it as a snack during their breaks, and it could be shared with the other staff. "Oh yeah, this is from another class. Just a reward for you guys. Get them to eat while having their breaks." "Oh, thanks, thanks. I just thought of buying it, so go ahead. If they want to thank, they should be thanking the guy who's being like a butler." "Thank you for your graciousness, me lord. Forget about it, and stop with that play. I'm hungry after lunch." Amane chuckled at the annoyingly cheerful Itsuki and felt apologetic about what he would say, for this might affect the latter's mood. "Say Itsuki." "I met Daiki-san." It was obvious that Itsuki froze up upon hearing that. Amane said it at this point, as he did not wish to tell Itsuki with Chitose present, but this might affect Itsuki's motivation. He did not want to say anything. He didn't say anything about Chitose. I'm just reporting in. He said it's inconvenient for him to be here, so he went elsewhere." Yeah. Dad doesn't really come to this place, and it'll leave Chi awkward. Maybe it's better for him not to come by." "I never heard him say that he'll be here." So Itsuki shrugged and muttered, "I'll ask when I get home. I doubt he'll be looking for me today." He gave an inscrutable smile, held the gift in one hand, and went to the counter. Amane sighed. If only things go well. It might not be easy, and it might be slow, but it would be great if this would eliminate the friction between them. So Amane prayed. Chapter 213. As You Like. The matter about Daiki left both Amane and Mahiru a little depressed when Chitose served their food, and she quizzed once she saw their faces. What's with you two? Had an argument? You think we will?" "Normally speaking, there'll be quarrels even in love, but I can't deny what you said since you two are willing to listen to each other. It's amazing." Chitose sounded dumbfounded and yet impressed as she praised them, but Amane did not think it was anything weird. Mahiru was usually gentle, magnanimous, and hardly got angry, only doing so for others. Even if it was the case, hardly anything would rile her, given her personality. If he really argued with Mahiru, the fault would usually be on him who angered her. And even then, it would become a discussion over where the problem was, why she was angry, and how they should resolve this. Aman had never gotten to this point with her, and if he did, he would apologize profusely. Thus, they hardly argued. It was the same for Mahiru, who seemed numb to the concept of arguing as her caramel-colored eyes blinked away. It resonated with Amane's thoughts, and the latter chuckled. She never was furious at a man. She lashed out once at him when he was down on himself, but she was critical of him rather than furious, and only did so for his sake. I say, we aren't arguing. We're just frustrated by something. Don't know what to do. Oh, it's good that you aren't arguing. Your parents aren't coming, Aman. Amane froze the moment he heard the word parents. Chitose closed in on him, not noticing his gestures. It seemed she had completely forgotten about Daiki, and he was relieved. Well, Mahirun said that your mom will really get along with me, so I'm curious. Just want to say hello to your mom. More than get along, I guess. You two are so similar that Mahiru will be the victim of your antics. They loved cute things, were aggressive with their skinship, and really loved Mahiru. These were the three similarities they had, and it was likely they would dote on Mahiru so much she would become their plaything. It seemed Mahiru easily imagined that sight, for her lips twitched, and Amane pretended not to notice. They're going to shove a bunch of clothes onto you. Or go for some skinship. Do your best. If there was any consolation, it was that they would not hurt Mahiru. The latter gave Amane a pleading look for help, but Amane alone could not deal with this, and could only pray that she could hang on. Anyway, that's enough. You sure it's fine for you not to go back? Whoa, really? Makochin's glaring here. Their classmate Kuju seemed to have some choice words for Chitose as he looked over, and it was inappropriate for her to keep chatting. Chitose stuck her tongue in apology and was met with a cold look from Kuju. Amane prompted Chitose to hurry back to work. He saw her back as she reluctantly returned to work, and sigh. I can only support you mentally. Do your best. You seem rather hands-off. Actually, I'm not going to stop those two passionate idiots. Do your best. If you really can't handle them, just reject them outright. I do not mean that. I suppose they will put all kinds of onto me. I guess so. Shihoko loved to dote on Mahiru and dress her up, and she would be all the more enthusiastic with Chitose around. After all, Shihoko had taken Mahiru as her daughter and would probably take the latter to fashion shops to try various clothes and have her try them on. One could expect Chitose to join in enthusiastically. Amane could not forcibly stop Shihoko, for she wanted a daughter, and took a liking to Mahiru. Well, if you're willing to dress up, I don't think I have to stop her. You know this means that I cannot refuse, no? Actually, you can refuse them both. I'm more than glad to dress you up. Aman did not actually have any clothes in mind, but he thought it would be fun to have her wear clothes he felt would be suitable to her. I do plan to dress up as you like, even without considering them. Mahiru softly muttered and lowered her eyes bashfully. You are the one I like, and I'll like anything you wear. Aman was unable to say this, however, and took a sip of coffee, smiling at how adorable she was. Chapter 214, Do Not Bully. Aman waited for the embarrassed Mahiru's cheeks to calm down as he drank his coffee. Looking around him, he realized the impact a reputation would have on customers. They prepared more seats than usual, but there were no empty seats available. It was the same during their customer, for there was an endless influx of customers, and it was packed full. To be blunt, the most likely targets would have been Mahiru or Katawaki, but there were lots of customers even during their breaks. Perhaps it was due to the clothes. Young boys and girls were usually dressed in school uniforms, and it seemed the sight of them in service clothing were tantalizing to some. As for Aman, he merely felt that it was something he was not used to. For example, He never imagined Chitose to wear clothes that were used to service others. She served the customers with a cheerful smile. Amain had a glance and did not notice her being deft as befitting her clothes. However, her liveliness and approachable attitude were coupled with the short-made miniskirt, which seemed fine. "Is there anything wrong with Chitose-san?" While Amani looked at Chitose and marveled at her positivity, Mahiru quizzed So, having successfully stopped her embarrassment, it seemed. "It's nothing. I didn't feel anything when we're working, but when I look at it now, our classmates aren't exactly comfortable in these clothes. We should be at the point where we're used to it. Fufu, we do hardly wear such clothes after all. It's rare to see that many customers here too. They say we're all cute and handsome, but well, it does suit us all." There were students and visitors, and most of them might be active staff from elsewhere. One could hear them squeeing away at who were the cute ones, who were the handsome ones. Their passion was understandable, but the staff members could only give wry smiles given how loud they were. Aman glanced aside at the toiling staff, and then towards Mahiru. She seemed to be exerting more strength in her eyelashes. "What is it?" "Nothing. You do think the girls are cute?" "No, just normal." Amane had an inkling of what Mahiru wanted to say, so he smiled and hid his lips behind the joints of his fingers. "In terms of beauty and etiquette, I find them cute, but don't worry. You're the only one who makes me want to dote on for being cute." Again with such words. "Looks like you want me to explain. You'll be jealous if I don't say this." This time Amani whispered so softly that others could not hear. She frowned, pursed her lips, and bashfully lowered her eyes again. "I feel like a fool for being restless. You can check as many times as you want. I will be embarrassed, though. I'll dote on you again. You happy with that? Are you intending to kill me?" "That's hyperbole." "It is not. You are always torturing my heart. It causes me much burden." "You hate it?" "Not that I do, but, please show some mercy." Mahiru's shoulders shriveled, and Amane's desire to tease her was piqued, but at the same time, he remembered that she might pout if he overdid. Some moderation would be fine. "I'll see," so he answered, but she glared back at him unhappy. "It seemed he was not trusted on me. I shall retaliate if you bully me next time." "Interesting. I shall ignore you if you do so again." Mahiru turned her head aside, and she was so adorable that Amane chuckled. She then snatched his cookie unhappily, turning her head further aside. Chapter 215. Live Performance. There were too many people, and it was inappropriate for them to chat. Aman sought an opportunity to end the conversation and left the cafe. He sighed, not knowing where to go. The festival was open until 4 p.m. It would be half an hour until the day ended. They would have to tally their sales revenue, report in, and prepare for the next day. Aman wanted to tour around once again before then, but they had visited the main attractions. "Anywhere else you want to go to?" "Actually, we have visited many places. Shall we have a look at the gym stage?" Stage? What's over there now?" There were stage activities starting from the afternoon, and students' volunteers would perform various shows. He remembered there were skits and performances. He had a look at the pamphlet and noticed the Light Music Club was having a live show. "It's a live show. Are you interested?" "I do not really listen to music. Perhaps I should use this chance to." "Well, yeah, you don't really play BGM. Western music at most." Mahiru was aware of the current trends, but not music. In fact, she preferred the classical Western music to the trending Japanese music out of personal likes. Even when there were some popular male idols who often appeared on TV, she could only match the faces and names. "Since you want to go, let's do it. I'm rather curious myself." "Yes." There are no shops they wish to visit, so Aman held Mahiru by the hand and led her to the gym to kill time. Most of the lights were switched off, and the remaining ones shone upon the stage. They could hear music outside, and it got a lot louder after they entered, which jolted them. Amani felt ticklish as he gently closed the door to avoid disturbing others and quickly sat down at an empty space. He lifted his head and spotted the volunteer team singing on stage. There was one familiar face there, and a man narrowed his eyes at that person. Standing before the microphone was the person he often saw since morning. Katawaki? He never mentioned he's performing. Amain knew that Katawaki could sing, as they had been to karaoke a few times, but he never expected the latter to be on stage, or even heard rumors about it. The vibrant vigor to prepare for club, cultural festival, and live performance on stage really astounded him. However, it was all the more surprising, given that he hated to stand out. Katawaki-san really can do everything. You of all people shouldn't be saying that, Mahiru. Mahiru seemed rather impressed, but she was capable of everything. Studies, sports, housework. Few were as capable as her. There are things I am bad at too. Like swimming, I guess. You still couldn't swim at the end. I will be underestimating it if I feel that I can learn it in a day. I just cannot grasp it, no matter how I tried. Sorry. Mahiru might seemed a little peeved to hear Amane say that she still could not do it, and she started flailing fists at his arm. He gave a wry smile and looked back at the stage again. He hated the attention, but it seemed he was used to it, for he showed no fear before the masses and truly imposed himself on it. He even eagerly waved back at a few fans. Coincidentally, there was a space that did not obstruct his vision much. His face cringed a little once he met Amani in the eyes. It seemed he did not expect the latter to appear. We'll chat later. So a man implied as he waved and approached. Katawaki blinked and showed a different smile from before. That smile triggers squeals from the girls. Amane and Mahiru burst out laughing at this usual scene. Chapter 216. The first day of the cultural festival ends. You never told me that you're performing. After the live show, Katawaki went to the wall and showed up before Amane and Mahiru. Amane snarked, and Katawaki put on the tie as he had undone it for the concert, giving a troubled smile. They didn't plan for me to go up there, but the vocalist got an injured leg a week before. During the club activity, the doctor wouldn't allow, so I showed up. The live show required the performers to move their bodies, and an injured person could not do so. I see. How's the guy anyway? Fine. He's upset for not being able to go up there, and I feel a little sorry. From the looks of it, though, he's rather happy with how the performance turned out. Well, I guess it can't be helped. Didn't expect you to sing that well as a substitute. It's perfect. Really, that's good. Amani already knew that Katawaki had great vocal skills during their karaoke sessions, but he never expected that. Katawaki was not overwhelmed by the crowd and even captivated them. Amain was amazed at Katawaki's ability, having heard the girls shriek. It seemed Katawaki had seen this too, for he scratched his cheek in embarrassment. It's still a little embarrassing to be seen by friends while doing this. Is it better for us not to see? Not that, actually. I was a little relieved to see you two act normal. I feel more relaxed seeing those I'm familiar with. I really got to thank you too for this, Katawaki said, looking awkward. The girls peeking on him discreetly started murmuring. Amane gave a wry smile in his heart, noting that Katawaki was still the center of attention. Don't sweat it, so he joked back once he saw Katawaki's awkward yet proud smile. Good work, Mahiru merely gave a calm smile, and did not go beyond what Amane had said. It probably was to prevent any unnecessary envy. While everyone knew that Mahiru and Amane were dating, there would be a bad impression if she was too close to Katawaki at such an open place. But it's a pity. It's not often that we get this every day. I really wanted Itsuki to see this. No thanks. He'll probably begrudge me for not telling him or laugh at me. Just hang on then. It's your fault for keeping this a secret. What can I do when it's decided so suddenly? I don't have a choice. Stop it, man. So Katawaki joked Amane made up his mind to mention this during the class meeting later. LOL, nope, and his face relaxed as he patted Katawaki on the shoulder. Everyone worked hard on the first day. Good work. Amain spent time with Mahiru and Katawaki until the live performances ended, and they returned back. The first day of the festival ended, and gathered there were the students on the prior shift, along with the rested. They probably had enough fun themselves, for they looked really happy. Itsuki, the committee member, praised them, and they voiced out their joy. Once the commotion subsided, he coughed a few times, bringing their attention back. Now then, a little roundup for tomorrow. Accounts team, please tally if our sales revenue match our orders and report to me. Put the money in the specified bag and hand it to me. I'll pass it to the committee. Back-end team, prepare for tomorrow. Receptionists, clean the classroom. Once done back-end, sort out what we need tomorrow. Okay. Once they were assigned their work, the students obediently got down to business. Amane was in charge of cleaning, so he rolled his sleeves, filled a bucket of water, and hurried to get it done soon. He had no inkling of the concept of cleaning just a year old. Through Mahiru's guidance and experience, he was at average level, if not adept, or to be precise, he could at least keep a place neat and tidy. You're good, Kido noted in amazement once she saw Amane working alongside Mahiru. No, Mahiru's a lot better than me. She's somewhat my master, and I really didn't know anything about this at first. I didn't expect this. Fujimiya-kun. I thought you would be more disciplined. Amon-kun is reliable whenever he is not at home. Mahiru, who was removing and folding the dirtied tablecloths, joked so as she looked towards them. Amane could only remain silent, even as she hinted at how horrible he was at home. Facts were facts, but he really disliked being teased. Well, that's how it is for a guy living alone. But that was too much. I had no place to stand on when I entered. That's how it is. Really? Well, our Sokan's not living alone. But his room is neat, you know. He said he keeps things packed up because I'm entering, and there's nothing under the bed. Don't look for those things. A girlfriend looking for those things would be a bone-chilling experience for any male. One had to hope that all girlfriends in the country would never try to rummage for such things. A man felt nothing of it, for he did not have any, even if anyone was to look. But most would always have some personal possessions they were hiding. Ah, I'm not finding something actually. I'm just wondering if it actually happens, like those scenes in manga. You read too much manga. Yeah. Sokchun laughed at me and said that I got carried away. What about you, Fujimiya-kun? I got nothing, and I don't want to be suspected. Ahaha. Kido burst out laughing, and Amane started to pity Kayano. Man, that was a tragedy. Mahiru in turn looked confused. What are you talking about? It seemed she did not hear fully as she was working. Amane tried his best to act natural, given her curious look, and averted his eyes. Nothing really important. Fujimiya-kun, you mean you don't need them since you have Shina-san? Kido, don't say anything weird now. Amane endured the overflowing embarrassment as he glared at the leering Kido. Kido's grin grew bigger, but ultimately, Mahiru grew increasingly skeptical. Amane had enough, held Mahiru's hand, and pulled her away from Kido. What were you talking about? Nothing at all. Your face seems to imply otherwise. As I said, nothing at all. Chapter 217. When are we changing how we address each other? They returned home after preparing for the next day, and Amane went to buy ingredients for dinner before heading home. For some reason, Mahiru welcomed him in a maid outfit. Why are you wearing that? It was expected that they would bring their outfits home, given that they were responsible for what they loaned. Amane wondered why Mahiru was wearing it, however, and narrowed his eyes. One could say he was stupefied to see the strange sight of a maid appearing before him at home. She said she wanted to head home earlier, and I expected her to plan something. They usually returned home together. And on this day, Mahiru had Amane do the shopping while she went home. He was mystified by it, but he never expected her to welcome him in maid outfit. Mahiru welcomed him home with the usual smile, dressed in the clothes he saw at school. I returned home to wash the clothes. It is not often that I get this chance, so I wore it. Well, I guess people usually wear a maid outfit once in their lives, or not at all. They usually would not wear this unless it was for cosplay purpose. He, however, never expected her to wear this, and was perturbed. For the time being, he removed his shoes, got changed, and went to the living room, Mahiru was waiting for him there, preparing to serve tea. Her gestures were no different from a real maid, if one did not look at the interior decors of the room, and Aman felt unbearable. "So, how long are you going to remain dressed up like that?" Until dinner is cooked. I have prepared the side dishes yesterday, so I have to do is to take them out of the fridge or fry them." "I see. Is this bad?" Mahiru might be sensitive about how Amani looked bewildered, and lowered her eyebrows sadly as she observed him. "Not that I don't like this. I just can't calm down." "Really? I do feel motivated to take care of you in this." "Take care, well, you're taking care all right. And you will not touch me unless we are both alone," Mahiru said with a smile, sat silently by the side, leaned on Amani's stiff shoulders, and latched upon his shoulder. What she meant was that Amani would never hug or hold her hand while she was wearing these clothes. "Contact with maids usually are forbidden, right? It is fine, since you are the master of the house, Amani-kun." She stammered and eked out this bashful voice, looking really adorable. Aman really had the urge to hug, but he held back and instead grabbed the hands latched upon his arm. He was not too interested in those clothes, but she was wearing such adorable clothes, giving such an adorable look, which was enough to knock his sanity off balance. "You say that, but what will you do if I force myself onto you unreasonably?" "You are not being unreasonable and not forcing yourself onto me. I want to devote my utmost to you. You've always been. It is not enough. I have gained lots and lots from you, and I wish to give you lots." It seemed that to Mahiru, Aman had given her lots, and one could imagine that she was referring to human relationships, love, warmth, and such. "I gave her these not because I want her to owe me. I just want to do something for her." Aman did out of his own intense emotions, rather than for Mahiru's sake, and she really did not need to worry about it. After all, her smile was sufficient compensation, and he really hoped for her to not be bothered. But she would not accept this explanation. "I'll gain lots of things from you in the future. I don't need that much now." Amani expressed that he would gain lots from Mahiru in the future. She widened her caramel-colored eyes, blinked, and seemed to understand what he meant by gain, for she immediately boiled over. Amani gently chuckled once he saw his cute girlfriend look up at him flusteredly, let go of his arm, and put her on his lap. Her face turned redder immediately, and her eyes swam about, the rigor she had from before gone elsewhere. He huffed his shoulders, quietly giggled to himself, and put his lips near the fiery cheek. "That's why you should wait a while until you call me husband, right?" Yes." Mahiru nodded hastily, and moved her white headdress aside. Without saying anything, Amani bit on her pink lips. Chapter 218. The Parents Join the Fray. It was the second day of the culture festival. A main shift was in the afternoon, and he should be free in the morning. "It's been a while since I returned to my alma mater. Still the same as before. It's all renovated, but the mood hasn't changed." Shuto stood before the entrance, smiling as he looked up at the campus, muttering to himself. It was summer the last time he met Amane. Next to him, Shihoko clung on firmly. "We haven't been here since the opening ceremony," showing a poised smile as she said so. They were as lovey-dovey as before. Amani was used to it, but the surrounding strays were fixed upon them. Amani really had the urge to pretend to be unrelated, but of course Mahiru latched onto his arm, stopping him. Her caramel-colored eyes became warm, as though imploring for him to give up, and he was pressurized by this. Can we don't walk around together?" "Oh dear. You're saying this when we haven't met after a few months? You're a bad boy. We don't go around with our parents in this era." "Of course no. I guess it's the common rebellious phase if you say you hate to be with your parents." "Not that I hate it. It's that you two stand out too much." They already were. Bias aside, both of them looked rather young and gave the vibe befitting a couple. It was uncommon to see an old couple being so passionate till this point. If their classmates saw it, they might end up teasing Amani later, and if possible, he really did not want to be seen with his parents. Mahiru, in turn, was the opposite. Her parents never attended a school event, and it seemed she was delighted by Shihoko and Shuto's arrival that she wanted to stroll around with them. Aman would feel a little guilt to ignore her little wish, given that he knew of her background. He was willing to let her be happy, and endure so, but shameful things were shameful. What do you mean, stand out? You two are already standing out, no? Shihoko muttered as she looked at Amane and Mahiru leaning onto each other, smiling away. Amane had a vague feeling that the smile was an encouragement, joy, urging him to mow on, and his face cringed. But the parents stand out more if both parents and students are walking together. Well, you already stand out. Not much difference. Anyway, you two are already flirting, no? No, we aren't. Whatever. You probably want to visit some mock-up shop. Better hurry up, though. Our shift starts at noon. You're following along? I'm applying the brakes. Maybe not. You two might be the more flirty ones, you know. Right, Shuto-san? Ahaha, yes. Shuto gave a gentle smile, and Amane sighed while putting his hand on his forehead. Shuto was unlike Shihoko in that he would never tease others, but he was hard to deal with as he never would oppose nor deny vehemently. Amane would be deemed boorish if he continued to refuse, and in fact he really could not refute. So, where do you want to go? Well, we'll only get to see you work in the afternoon. If we exclude that, it's a rare opportunity to be here. Maybe we can go to the arts and crafts shop? The pamphlet says that they're open. We'll bring you there. Is that all right? In any case, the best resolution was to satisfy his parents' demands as soon as possible. They would gain attention for nothing if they remained. So Amani compromised, put his hand on the back of the giggling Mahiru, gently nudged her as a reminder, and entered the campus. Chapter 219. The Muscle Fetishist of the Crafts Club. Your parents really are on good terms, Fujimiya-kun. Just like you. Amani's parents openly expressed their affection as they looked at the products of the Crafts Club. Kido, the salesgirl, giggled away. Amane did not really know which clubs his classmates belonged to. It seemed Kido was in this crafts club, and being the salesgirl, I thought you would be a sports club manager or something, Kido. Amane subtly kept his distance from his parents, and looked at Kido, who was wearing an apron, probably handmade. Kido had openly proclaimed her love for muscles, so Aman assumed that she would be a sports club manager or something, as there were boys there, and she would have opportunities to see muscles. He did not expect her to be in the crafts club. I can enjoy the sight of muscular guys, but I'll be doing so alone, and if actually join Ed 1, Sok-chan will pout. Kayano? He doesn't mind me watching those trained professionals on TV or in the photos, but he told me not to drool at other classmates. I don't think he's being jealous. He's more worried about your reputation. Nobody would want to see a cute girl staring dumbfoundedly at muscles, drooling away, let alone a girlfriend. Kido, however, seemed annoyed at Amane's opinion, for she puffed her cheeks. How rude. Even I would choose who I will drool at. I won't space out at those with so-so muscles. Kido put her hands on her hips and puffed her chest, not denying that she would drool. Actually, I joined the crafts club because Dad asked me to act more like a girl. And another important reason is that I want to personally make clothes for Sokantan and also measure him. Whoa, you're hardcore. Don't run away. Shina-san too will definitely make clothes for you if you strip and let her measure. Don't give my Mahiru any weird fetish idea. Mahiru herself would feel really awkward. She was unwilling to see him bare his shoulders and obviously would not want him to strip. Aman would have a headache if she ended up having a muscle fetish like Kido. Amane made no attempt to hide his bewilderment as he looked at a crestfallen-looking Kido. Mahiru, who had been accompanying Amane's parents, came over, looking perplexed. What are you chatting so excitedly about? We're talking about you being happy if Fujimiya-kun strips. How's that possible? Right, Mahiru? I suppose not. What's with the weak denial? A man had assumed Mahiru would blush and deny fervently, but she seemed strangely hesitant, which shocked him. Because I told Shina-san about how amazing muscles are. Don't do anything unnecessary. You don't have to teach Mahiru anything strange. I'm saying how good muscles are. Don't take human beauty as some strange knowledge. It's the final result of training the body. You describing it as that is rude, you know? Ah, yes, I'm sorry. Aman instinctively apologized once he was unexpectedly given a serious lecture. No. What if Mahiru awakens to that? Can't you just strip? No way. Amani would never do so, as he could easily imagine Mahiru overheating. She barely managed to endure when they bathed together, and if he stripped as he usually did, she surely would look away from him for quite a while. Not everyone will want to see exposed shoulders. Amane gave Kido a dazed look. Shiina-san does, though, and she did not mind as she muttered so. On a side note, Mahiru was shaking her red head flustered. Kido probably had a delusion, wanting to increase the number of muscle fetishists. She clearly was going to steam, for her lips quivered as she muttered, "I have thought of that shameless thing. Just a little." She might clam up if he retorted about her saying just a little, so he pretended not to hear. Mahiru's thought was probably out of an interest pertaining to her lover, and not due to a fetish like Kido. Oh my, you two are chatting happily. Aman was wondering how to coax the flushed Mahiru when Shihoko and Shuto seemed to have bought something they were fond of. They slipped the item into a bag and walked over with leisurely smiles. Kido blinked away and showed a proper smile that was directed to outsiders, with nary a hint of the girl who was chatting about muscles. Ah, Fujimiya-kun's parents. Nice to meet you. I'm the classmate of Fujimiya-kun and Shiina-san, Ayaka Kido. How courteous you are. I'm Shuto Fujimiya, and this is my wife Shihoko. Shuto introduced himself, and Shihoko and Kido bowed with a smile. The obedient facade had a main chuckling. What were you talking about? About Kido's interests. Shuto asked Amani, who averted his eyes as he gave a neutral answer. Shihoko blinked away and seemed interested. What kind of interest? Human observation, I guess. She also likes to see others work hard and cheer for them. The human observation, marveling at muscles aspect, was not wrong, and neither was the part about cheering on people who were working on their muscles, though it was not right either. What do you think about our Amain? Is he working hard? I think he is. I don't really know, though, since I haven't chatted with him for long. Amane had a feeling she was definitely talking about muscles, but he did not retort in front of his parents, for it would be bad if this led to more issues. Mahiru probably understood as well, for she remained silently. She discreetly rubbed Amane's belly while his parents were busy talking, and it seemed to be Kido's influence. We'll talk at home, so Amane pried the hand away. Mahiru probably noticed what she just did, for she immediately blushed. Fujimiya-kun looks happy and hard-working whenever he's with Shiina-san. I think I want to observe up close. Is their relationship good at school too? Yep, ridiculously good. Everyone's blinded by them. Oi, Kido, enough with the nonsense. But really, I'm not wrong. It's the truth. I always feel you two are a match for each other, you know? Kido leered and praised, probably as retaliation for him taking her muscle fetish as some strange knowledge. His parents too smiled happily, and he had the urge to get away immediately. Aman had a feeling he was blushing as hard as Mahiru just now, so he glared at Kido, who did not mind. It feels like everyone in class has given their blessings. That's good. Shut up. Shuto gave a kind smile full of joy. Amane felt he had nowhere to go, so he pouted and turned his head aside. Chapter 220. Curious about her house. Why do you look so gloomy, Amane-kun? Why exactly? Shuto and Shihoko left the exhibition sales of the crafts club and started touring around again. Mahiru leisurely followed them while latching onto Amane, not letting him run away. Amane concealed his pouting emotions as he stared at the back of his delighted parents, looking completely unmotivated. The stares hurt. He could feel stinging stares upon him, for he was moving along with his parents who gained much attention. He did not like the attention, but he started to get used to it, especially as Mahiru's boyfriend. The stares this time were different, for they were neither jealous nor malicious, but curious. The familiar-looking faces had everyone all the more interested. His parents flirted around as they went to another shop, and Aman could only trudge along behind them. Having witnessed this, Mahiru lowered her eyes awkwardly. "We can split from them if you are that unwilling." "Not that I'm unwilling. It's just a little awkward seeing my own family like this. It is hypocritical of you, Amane-kun. I think you are very similar to Shuto-san." "How so?" "Well, recently, you will instinctively give that you belong to me possessive vibe. You started holding my hands, grabbing my shoulders." Mahiru's cheeks turned increasingly red, and she pursed her lips slightly. Amani was silent and kept his mouth shut. "To be honest, I think it is good to be forthright, and my heart does jump. You have the self-confidence now, and I am glad for you, while also starting to panic. You do pay heed to the strangest of things, however, and occasionally timid. The last part is unnecessary, right? It is true, though, but that is good, since you are not you if you are not timid. Oi, what do you think of me?" It seemed Mahiru felt that Amane was uselessly timid, which frustrated him. They had been dating for 4 months and stayed over, but did not gain any experience. Perhaps it was right to say that he was timid. Both sides had a mutual understanding, and Mahiru understood that it was a choice made because he wanted to cherish her. However, he was a little miffed that it was taken as his standard. "Since you find me timid, we'll see at home then. They will be staying over tonight, right?" Despite that, it would be boring to have Mahiru underestimate him completely. "Then can I stay over at your place?" he said, partly to tease her, and partly to visit her house even if they could not stay over. Mahiru was stunned, and then looked down. She stopped, reeled in her shoulders, and lowered her head. Aman sensed that he overdid it, and was about to apologize when she timidly lifted her head. Yo you may, you. I will do my best to clean up." It was a joke, but she seemed to have taken it seriously, for her fists were shaking, and her face was so red. Amane worried if she was fine. It seemed he really could not overdo it, so he swore to control his hands. Whether he could do it, however, was another matter. Chapter 221, Do Not Mix Dangerous Things. "You do understand how cute Mahiru-chan is, huh?" "Well, of course, Mahirun's so charming, and I'm really knowing more and more of her cute points. Don't mix these two dangerous things together." Shihoko and Chitose got along well on the first day they met. Amane saw them dote on Mahiru and sighed hard. Itsuki and Chitose were both in the same shift as Amane, so they were free that morning. They coincidentally met Amane's parents, and Amane had no choice but to introduce his parents to them. It all went relatively well until this point. Thereafter was the problem. Chitose initially acted obedient, but once Shihoko started doting on Mahiru, she could not help but join the fray instead. They immediately got together, and because of their continued praise, Mahiru blushed and shivered. The caramel-colored eyes were overflowing with shame as she looked to Amane, pleading for help. But there was no way he could defeat their passion. He could only let them continue and gather amongst the men instead. "Our child has been under your care." No. Ugh. "What, Aman? You're not denying it." "Well, I did, but it's a matter of whether you're a busybody." Itsuki was really a busybody sometimes, but mostly speaking, Aman really was under his care and caused him trouble. Amani was grateful to him, and though he usually would not say so, he really felt so. Amane and Mahiru would not have deepened their relationship this much if not for Itsuki, and one could say that Itsuki and Chitose really influenced his own relationship. And it was because of his gratefulness that Amane did not deny what Shuto said. For some reason, Itsuki averted his eyes. "You're rather honest at such moments. You're saying that my personality's twisted? You want to fight? You're obviously twisted if you can infer that. Anyway, you still have self-awareness?" "Shut up. You bastard." Amane slapped Itsuki on the back, but they were merely fooling around, and Itsuki did not mind as he grinned away and observed Amane. Shudo too smiled as he watched on. Aman had enough as he looked aside, only to hear the former chuckle. "Actually, I think Amani's rather eccentric. He's dishonest, but rather straightforward. He's always like this. He's not the most approachable, So it's really great that he has a friend that understands him. No, I think it's great to have such a great friend. Mind not talking about this in front of me. But, I suppose, we shall message you later then. Aman meant for them to not mention that in front of him, and for some reason, Itsuki and Shuto started talking about how they should contact each other, which troubled him. He had a feeling that they would discreetly report and really hoped this would not happen. But even if he stopped them at this point, Shitose and Shihoko might collaborate over something. He had a really strong feeling that it was pointless to stop them. Mahiru and I are going to be teased anyway. It was mostly friendship and parental love, but the one in the middle found it unbearable. He wanted to remind them later, and turned his eyes aside. But in a corner of his eyes, he spotted Daiki, whom he met the previous day. It was not weird for Daiki to appear as the guardian, but he merely watched from afar and did not approach them. He was giving a conflicted look, which troubled Amane. Daiki was looking at Itsuki and probably worried about his son. Aman, what? Itsuki noticed Amane's frozen stare and looked over, only for his handsome face to tense up. Amane knew that both father and son were not on good terms, but the reaction was so obvious that he found it awkward as a friend. He looked over at Itsuki, not knowing what to do. Itsuki's lips shook, not knowing what to say, and turned his back on Daiki, went to the chatting Shitose, laughing away. Hey, it's about time to buy lunch, right? If we don't queue up now, we'll be hungry in the afternoon. That's no good. Sorry. We should go now. Really? We'll be at the cafe later. See you then. Yes. Chitose bowed politely and was gently prodded by Itsuki to leave. The latter did so probably to avoid having Chitose look unhappy if she met Daiki, but it was too brazen to Daiki. Why did this happen? Amane sighed as he watched Itsuki ignore Daiki's existence completely. Chapter 222. Between Parents. I caused them trouble. Daiki, who had been observing from afar, approached with a wry smile once he was certain Itsuki and Chitose left. Aman, too, felt very awkward and apologetic, but he was not one to press the matter pertaining to the affairs of others, and could only watch them leave helpless. Shihoko noticed the approaching Daiki and approached alongside Mahiru. The father of Itsuki we just met. Why, greetings. Our son has been under your care. No, I was. First was the common greeting. Amane's parents and Daiki introduced themselves. Amane was peeved to see so. Daiki-san, that was. It was to be expected. I was too harsh on her, and it is expected that Isuki would avoid me. Daiki seemed to have given up, rather than feeling despondent, and took it as fact. Shuto and Shihoko seemed to have realized that Daiki was on bad terms with his son's girlfriend, Shitose, and lowered their eyebrows worried. They probably remembered their conversation with Amane, that a friend had fallen in love but was not approved by his parents, and it troubled them. Daiki did not seem to mind the expressions of Amane's parents. He then seemingly recalled something as he looked diagonally upwards and smiled. Speaking of which, Shiina-san, you do seem to be on very good terms with Fujimiya-kun's parents. It shocked me. Thank you for your compliments. She's my future daughter, and she's so obedient that I want to dote on her. Shihoko and Shuto's personalities were such that since they had approved of Amane and Mahiru to date, Mahiru would be their daughter, and this relationship seemed so natural. This might sound like a dig to Daiki, however, so Amane did not express further. Shihoko, however, did not mind, and flat out stated. Amane felt that Shihoko already intended so, and since she wanted to, Shuto had no intention to stop. Shihoko clearly stated her interest in Mahiru without any malice, and Mahiru was embarrassed. Daiki widened his eyes in shock, and then showed a wry smile. I suppose. Both of you surely do not have anything to be unhappy about, since it's her. Yes, she is the one my son chose. She's pretty, and after meeting her, we feel that we can leave Aman to her. Amane was peeved that to his parents, they would be entrusting Amane to Mahiru, and not the other way around. However, they were showing their care, and he did not have anything to really complain about. I'm envious. That foolish son of mine, however, is hopeless. Do you not trust your son? Well, he's not as good as your son. He's young and doesn't know stuff. Oh, I don't think so, you know. I heard from a man that he's kind and cares for others. That. Daiki stammered, and Shihoko gave a poised smile. She probably felt something as a fellow parent. Usually. She would not press the matter, but she was not holding back this time. The crux surely was because she witnessed Itsuki escorting his girlfriend away from his father. I know parents have their own thoughts about who their children choose, but boys do quickly grow independent, and they will resist if you impose too much. Since you raised him into such a fine boy, you should be able to trust his choice of partner. I do think an adult should watch on silently. Shihoko gave Daiki a smile, and the latter responded with the face of one who took a bitter pill. He was not doing so out of disgust, but that it hit a sore point. Shuto showed a faint wry smile once he saw that Shihoko did not intend to continue further. All right, I don't think it's appropriate for me to lecture since we just met, but since the child has not clearly strayed off and intends to walk his own path, he's not going to accept the fact that you're stopping him. Shuto surmised and smiled just as Shihoko did. Amane scratched his cheek and gently sighed. He did not think he should interfere, but he understood that for good or bad, Daiki was a stubborn man. He knew that parents would look at things differently compared to their children. Daiki understood that Chitose was not a bad person, so all that was left was the difference in perspectives and expectations. Daiki-san, please let me say something as well. You might not like Chitose, but she's not a hopeless person. Recently, she's been wondering how to get your approval, and she's working hard on it. I don't mean that you should accept her, but please look at her for who she is. Given his high expectations, Chitose might seem unacceptable. Nevertheless, she was not completely dumb, was observant in crucial moments, and knew how to care for others. Truth be told, Amane hoped that Daiki would not reject her outright just because of their difference in ideals. I too wish to resolve this. Even so, it is best if she works hard. She's going to bear our family name, so she needs the appropriate medal for this. You're right. I'll tell her that. I'll compromise depending on the situation. So the implication? And Amane quietly shrugged, heaving a sigh of relief due to the small step of progress. Chapter 223. The Things One Have and Doesn't. You're usually aloof to Akazawa-san and Chitose-san, Amane-kun, but you were being protective of them back then. Aman and Mahiru had lunch and broke away from Amani's parents for the time being, got changed, and prepared to start their afternoon shift. They would wait in the restroom for 20 minutes before heading out. Mahiru tied buns on her hair on this day, and her fingertips were on the white headdress she was going to wear as she smiled. Well, he's a friend. You are dishonest. Shut up. I'm being honest to you. Honest or direct, you do scare me from time to time and caused my heart to jump. Great. Your heart's jumping. Goodness you. Mahiru started whacking at Amane, giving a dumbfounded rather than displeased look. Amane shrugged and said, I really won't watch over them in ways they can see, though, so that they won't worry. I know what Daiki-san wants to say. What does he wish to say? He's a really great guy. You probably never visited him before, but it's a rather small mansion. Amane was shocked the first time he visited, for he never saw a house that different. Itsuki awkwardly stated that it was just some run-down house, but there should be some history to it, and it was nothing to be ashamed of. Yeah, it seems like Itsuki's from that kind of family. Daiki-san's basically saying that though Itsuki has an older adult brother who'll take over the house, he wants his younger son to have an outstanding female befitting of the family heritage. I see. Itsuki said that he's the younger son with no expectations on him, and that he should decide for himself. Daiki-san, though, wants him to have a better marriage. Well, I can understand both sides. Personally speaking, Amane was more biased towards Itsuki, but he did not think Daiki was completely in the wrong. It was not that Chitose was bad, but that the bar Daiki set for her was too high. Since they had family prestige, there was a certain demand which an ordinary person like Chitose could hardly reach. Amon did not intend to side with Daiki, but it was never good to not hear out the parties involved. Personally, I think that tearing them apart will cause friction and turmoil. It's better for their futures and relationship to let them be. I can say this since I'm not involved, though. Amane shrugged as he concluded. Mahiru stared at him and lowered her eyes. I am a little envious of Akazawa-san. Envious? Amon naturally widened his eyes once he heard this completely unexpected word. Mahiru in turn showed an awkward smile. It might be careless of me to say so. So she prefaced and sighed before continuing. They might find it unbearable, I think. Itsuki-san's father is interfering because he is worried about his son, no? I cannot deny that he has imposed his ideals into this, but it is still his love as a parent. Once Mahiru started talking about parents, Amane tensed up at an angle she would not notice. Ah, you do not have to worry about it. It seemed Mahiru had noticed Amane's worry, for she showed a faint smile, fiddled with her fingers, entangled them in her bundled hair, and slowly looked down. I do not have any thoughts about my parents now, but I see such a close family bond, which makes me envious since I feel lacking in his. Even if my parents care for me, I shall not deal with them. I have nothing to do with them, so she gently quipped and gently twirled the buns on the side of her hair. Amane did not press on about the stress-relieving gesture and instead removed the untied hair from her fingers, before his fingers slid down to her white face. She looked up. He noticed how shaken her eyes were, but he did not point it out, and instead smiled silently. Yeah, we got my parents, so you should be able to experience that. They said they're entrusting me to you. The Fujimiyas had practically taken Mahiru as a daughter and treasured and doted on her more than their own son. They doted her all the more, knowing that she lacked love. He was dumbfounded, however, when they said that they would be burdening her and told him not to let go of her. She blinked away a few times once he said so. His words seemed to have reached her heart, and she slowly broke into a smile. Fufu. Of course not. You are so wonderful. Thanks, a lot of people care about you. You don't have to think too much about it. Yes. Mahiru shyly leaned upon Amane, and he smiled. If the experience isn't enough, do I have to stick with her as I want for the entire night? Since they would spend the night together, he should cling on to her, or perhaps they should sleep together, creating an environment of close contact. He would then tell her often how much he treasured and loved her. She would be uneasy at certain intervals, and it would be best if he would convey his feelings to her. Don't lose control, though, so he swore to himself. Mahiru seemed to have noticed something, for she shivered, but she clung on to him. He took her in, and remained with her like that for a short while. Chapter 224. The Parents Visit the Shop. Oh my, such a cute attire you have, Mahiru-chan. Amon's parents arrived early by the time it was their shift. Amon welcomed them alongside Mahiru, trying to force a smile on his numb, cringing face. Shihoko in particular was being excited as Mahiru was dressed in maid outfit. She excitedly observed the clothing, and even touched it. Mahiru could only show a wry smile, probably because she was used to it, but by the rules, she had to refuse. Even if it was an acquaintance, if anyone was to set a precedent so openly, those who misunderstood might attempt to do the same, which Amane did not want. Mahiru might have difficulty refusing, for she let Shihoko touch to her heart's content. Amane sighed and reached out to stop. Dear customer, please do not touch our maid. Of course it's your personal maid, Amane. Normally speaking, the maid belongs to this shop. Shihoko seemed to understood Amane's intent that Mahiru belonged to him, and his face twitched. Nevertheless, she did not seem to mind. Amon too understood that it was pointless to posture and decided to serve as usual. Goodness me, this waiter's rude. Well, is it because you want her to yourself? Of course not. Rules are rules, no touching. We don't provide this service. Do stop, or it'll be a bad example to other customers. Even if it's mom? Nope, and you're not her mom. Shihoko might have deemed herself as Mahiru's mother already. She was already acting more like a mother than Mahiru's actual mother, and doted on her more than her own son, but Mahiru nevertheless was her son's girlfriend. Aman was more anxious to get his parents seated, rather than retort about this. A few customers and even the students had been casting glances here, which was really embarrassing. What's bad about that? It's no difference. So I say, whatever, let's bring you to your seats. Of course, there are other customers here. Lead me there then, waiter. Shihoko's genial smile had Amani's lips quivering, and a silent Shuto gave an apologetic look. Amane quietly sighed to himself and turned to look at the customers. Excuse me, I shall lead you to your seats. Shihoko stifled her giggles due to Amane's professional attitude. Amane ignored it and led them to the empty seat. Mahiru must have went off to serve another customer taking orders. Why do my parents have to see me like this? Amane felt embarrassed and wanted to sigh, but held it in as he showed his parents the menu. This is the menu of our shop. Please take note that all the items are sold in sets. Oh, I see. What do you want, Shuto-san? Any recommendations, waiter? If you like coffee, I recommend set A. If you like tea, set C might be more appropriate. Amane's father was not one to tease like Shihoko. But the bemused smile was something Amane found unacceptable. It was one thing to serve his classmates, but exceptionally awkward when it came to his family. Shihoko continued to snicker away, and Amane was increasingly frustrated. Can we bring the maid back? This shop doesn't provide such service. Even though you want to, don't make it sound so bad, that's just going home. Amane accidentally blurted his usual drawl, but Shihoko did not mind as she was obviously discussing personal matters. There was nothing more to say. Well, you're going to bring her back home anyway. Amane. We're going home anyway, and besides, she's bringing me home. Whoa. You're spending the night together? Shihoko gave an excited look, and Amane immediately regretted his slip of the tongue. I'll explain the rest later. Let's not talk now, seriously. You're at that age after all. I'm talking common sense. Don't talk about that in the shop. Aman scowled, and Shuto finally coaxed Shihoko. All right, we'll talk about that later. Of course, we'll ask about the details later. Just don't. Anyway, your orders? One set A and one set C. Is it fine with you, Shihoko-san? Yes, I'll be fine with both. Shihoko was delighted, and Shuto knew what Shihoko wanted without having to say anything. Certainly. Please wait a moment. Amane took their orders and hurriedly left, since he knew they would start flirting. As expected, there was an amicable conversation behind him. He sighed, informed the counter of the order, and his classmate there stared at him. One set A and one set C. What? That's your parents, Fujimiya? Unfortunately, yes. What do you mean, unfortunately? But, well, I feel that you're very different from your mom. This classmate saw how cheerful Shihoko was, and obviously the contrast was stark. After looking back at the chatting duo for a while, the classmate looked at Amane. What do you mean, You resemble your dad. Really? Well, I guess I got more resemblance to him. Yep, that's it. Amane narrowed his eyes at this obliging answer, but before he could answer, I got something to doth. The classmate hurried off, stating so. Amane did not know what was going on and was suspicious as he returned to his position. Chapter 225. Good friend. Due to the strange concern shown by his classmate, Amane personally served the food to his parents. But for some reason, Katawaki was there, talking with his parents. They appeared to be chatting genially, but Amane started to wonder if they were messing around again. With Shuto around, there probably would not be anything major revealed that would affect his future. Nevertheless, Shuto was prone to faults too, and he too might be an offender. Amane calmly balanced the tray with the food and quickly went towards them. Your food's here, he said flatly, as he put it on the table. What are you guys doing? So he glared at them, and his parents smiled back, clearly unfazed by that. Katawaki blinked away once he saw Amane and showed a gentle smile. Fujimiya, what are you doing? Just serving some water and greeting. He had a bottle of ice water in his hand and clearly was not lying. Anyway, Your mom's really pretty, Fujimiya. Oh my. You have quite the sweet mouth. You aren't as good as Shuto-san, Yuta-kun, but you're rather dashing yourself. Ahaha, honored to hear that. Shihoko casually called Katawaki by name, and one had to wonder when they were on such familiar terms, which was terrifying. They probably did not notice his anxiety, however, for the scene was so genial. Thank you for being willing to be friends with our son. He's rude and blunt, isn't him? Of course not. He doesn't really smile much, but he does convey his emotions. He's a little sarcastic, but he's never going to badmouth anymore. I think he has a good heart. Also, he's been looking friendlier recently, and I think it's because of Shina-san's influence. Wow. Oi, please don't say any more. It's embarrassing. But it's all true. True or not, you shouldn't be saying that in front of the actual person. Katawaki was not one to joke, and he probably would say what was on his mind. But Amane was unbearably ashamed to hear others say that to his parents. Itsuki and Shuto had a similar conversation before. Amane truly experienced embarrassment on this day, thanks to his friends. But if I don't give you a positive review, they aren't going to accept it. Isn't it fine to say such things once in a while? Nope. You shouldn't be telling my parents. You should be telling me that. Really? Why? Thanks for everything till now. I'm really grateful to have a friend like you. Thank you. A single sentence was accompanied with an innocent smile that was irresistible. Amane softly answered, and his observing parents chirped. It's really great that you two are like this. Shut up. Anyway, get back to work, Katawaki. Yes, sorry to take up your time. I'll see you next time. See you next time. The words left a man terrified, but Katawaki continued to smile as he returned back with the bottle. Burdened with the most fatigue he had for the day, Amane was completely worn out and unmotivated. You've made some good friends. Well, yeah. He was so tired that he could not put up any resistance and casually answered Shuto's delighted words. He did make some good friends, but a spade was a spade, and he really could not bring himself to be happy after being so humiliated. Amane showed a pouty look, and with a wry smile, Shuto picked up the coffee from the table. We might seem like busybodies to you, but we're still worried. We're wondering if you're doing well after having left home for a year and a half. He seemed to be worried about Amani in his own way, and was checking on his surroundings. However, Amani did not wish for Shuto to cause too much trouble for his friends. He was fine, however, that it was his friend who approached them. I see that you're getting along with your class, and getting smiles along with Shina-san. I think it's definitely because of you two. Apologies for that, but it's a little too late for that. Shut up. Recently, Amane would receive warm smiles from afar whenever he was with Mahiru, and it was too late to comment so at this point. It did not mean that he wanted these looks in the first place. A man gave Shuto a harsh look, and was met with a kind smile. He had enough and turned his head aside.